fact-checking, and we will do our best to bring you the correct information, as the President may give us some information that's not correct.
Americans and Asian Americans, very big declines. We're witnessing the fastest labor market recovery from any economic crisis in history, by far. By contrast, the last administration had the slowest, weakest, and worst recovery in American history.
The President is misrepresenting this recovery versus the previous recovery. Well, he's misleading. It is important to note that this President inherited a growing economy and that more jobs were created in the last 3 years of President Obama than in the first 3 years of President Trump. President Trump, to date, oversees a net loss of 5 million jobs, making him the worst jobs president at this point in his presidency in history.
Not only recovered, but reached a new all-time high. So think of that. Retail sales, that's a very basic statistic, and it's a big statistic. It not only recovered, but reached the highest level ever. Auto sales have surged to an incredible 74% since their April low and are nearly back to their pre-virus levels. And that's been a tremendous thing. Used cars and new cars have been both doing incredibly well. Mortgage applications were 27% higher in August than during the same period last year. Home builder sentiment reached the highest level on record, indicating that more high-paying construction jobs are on the way. Home building has been great, and lending has been really incredible. U.S. manufacturing activity reached a 19-month high in August. While my administration has fought every day to restore prosperity, however, Nancy Pelosi and the Democrats in Congress are holding additional China virus relief hostage to...
So, a couple things here. So first of all, the President's not totally accurate on the representation of manufacturing. Manufacturing actually slid into decline last year before the coronavirus pandemic, and as of June, there were nearly 300,000 fewer factory jobs in the U.S. than there were when President Trump was inaugurated. Also, it is not so accurate to describe Democrats as delaying the next round of stimulus, given that they passed the HEROES Act months ago, and Mitch McConnell's Senate had declined to act on it and did not put forward any solutions of their own until just the time that the enhanced unemployment was expiring.
It's in Congress to start working across the aisle and put the American people first. Now, we have $300 billion in an account that we didn't use, $300 billion, and we are willing to use that. I would be willing to release it subject to Congress and use that as stimulus money, and it would go right to the American people. So we have $300 billion sitting in an account that we didn't need because things are going so well with the economy, but it would be a very appropriate thing.
It is a strange statement to say that we didn't need money because things were going so well with the economy. The most recent job numbers do mark an improvement, but it is still an unemployment rate of 8.4%. Now, that is the first time that it has been under 10% since March, but it is still startlingly large. 12% of American adults, or roughly 30 million people, reported that their households often didn't have enough food in recent weeks. And 57 million Americans filed new unemployment claims during this pandemic period beginning in March. Around 30 million Americans are still depending on unemployment. 20 million Americans are still at risk of eviction, and Black and Latinx Americans are twice as likely to be facing eviction.
Absolutely cripple what we're doing on regulations and so many other elements of success. We had the greatest economy in history prior to the...
Okay, if you've been watching these fact checks before, you know that it was not the greatest economy in history. He had promised 4% GDP growth. It averaged 2.5% in the good years, which was lower than under Reagan or Clinton.
make it impossible for any economy to grow. They want to ban fracking. And as you saw,
it actually is not true that Joe Biden is seeking to ban fracking. Many progressive advocates are seeking a fracking ban, but that's not actually part of Joe Biden's plan.
control him want to ban fracking. And whether it's Pennsylvania, Texas, Oklahoma, North Dakota, so many other states, you can't ban fracking. That would be a disaster. Ohio want to abolish American energy. I mean, that's what's going to happen.
It is simply not true that the Biden plan is to abolish American energy. It's actually calling for unprecedented investments in energy in the U.S., and renewable energy jobs are very good jobs for Americans because you can't outsource the installation of solar panels.
Collapse our economy would cause countless deaths from suicide, drug, alcohol abuse, heart disease, and more. You know, shutdowns cause a lot of problems.
President Trump is falsely saying that Joe Biden has called for another shutdown. It is simply a lie. Joe Biden has not called for another shutdown.
Our country is doing so well. We're starting.
What Joe Biden has said is that if the nation's top medical experts called for a shutdown, he would be guided by the science. President Trump also just said the nation is doing so well. This is a startling claim to make when 187,000 Americans have died within the last 6 months during this crisis.
That's never going to change with that mindset and with that group. Biden is not going to be standing up to these foreign countries. He's not going to be standing up, maybe more importantly.
It is odd to say that Biden is not going to stand up to foreign countries because we have seen from this president a remarkable lack of standing up to certain countries. In one of the most startling instances of that, when news broke that, forget news, when his own intelligence agencies reported to him that Russia was placing bounties, was putting a price on the head of U.S. troops, he has said that he has not confronted Putin on this issue. And it has also been made known that he has repeatedly sided with Putin against our own intelligence agencies on the matter of Russia's interference in U.S. elections.
Killed after drawing a weapon when officers attempted to take him into custody. They wanted to take him into U.S. Marshals, credible people. So I want to thank them for their strength, their bravery, and I really do wish that the mayor of Portland and the governor of Oregon would get going and stop the crime in that city. It'd be so easy to do. While we're focused on creating good-paying jobs, the radical left is focused on unleashing really violent mobs, and you see that.
This is simply not true. For starters, the majority, the vast majority, the overwhelming majority of protests throughout the nation are peaceful, and Joe Biden has explicitly condemned the use of violence on anyone's part. This president has actually been reluctant to do that and came to the defense of the alleged shooter of protesters in Kenosha.
Together, and we are having a lot of people in Chicago right now, and you notice that their numbers are going down rapidly, but we've deployed a lot of federal law enforcement inside of Chicago, and they're taking out quite a few people, and they're being arrested, they're being put in jail, and that's why you see those numbers going down. That's why you see that with respect to the mayor, we did not hold back funds in Chicago. But New York is experiencing a tremendous crime wave, in some cases up over 300%.
The president is exaggerating the uptick in crime in New York. Now, he is referring to a plan of his to withhold federal funds from major cities, specifically cities with Democratic leadership. And he specifically named in his plan withholding funds from New York, Portland, and Seattle. Now, it is a striking thing to note that when we are talking about federal funds, It is overwhelmingly blue states that bankroll the federal government. The states of New York, California, Washington, and Oregon, some of the states that the president is referencing, account for nearly a quarter of all federal revenue. So it really is striking for the president to seek to deny states the money that they are responsible for generating in the first place.
And we don't talk about it too much, but now we might as well. So we've arrested over 2,000 criminals. They're criminals. And in a single month, murder rate in Chicago, as you know, and as I said, it was cut in half, actually. So on the China virus front, the nations of Europe have experienced a 38% greater excess mortality than the United States. 38% more, greater.
The president keeps misrepresenting the state of our struggle against the coronavirus, which is not the China virus. And the fact remains that the U.S. has more deaths than any other nation on earth from this disease, and has one of the highest rates of death per capita in the world.
The head of Pfizer, great guy, they announced that it expects to have the results of its trial very, very shortly, next month, but very shortly. We remain on track to deliver a vaccine before the end of the year and maybe even before November 1st. We think we can probably have it sometime during the month of October. And Pfizer is among the leaders, as you know, and it's a great company. Johnson & Johnson also doing very well. Moderna. We have some really great companies. They're all doing very well. They're all in final stages. And I think you're going to see results that are shockingly good. Finally, I want to provide you with a brief update of the virus. Cases in the United States have declined 28% nationwide over the last month, and hospitalizations and deaths have continued to decline over the past week, very substantially declined. Thanks to America's medical genius, the mortality rate has been reduced by 85% in April. Mortality rate reduced by 85%. Hospital lengths of stay are 1/3 of their average length in April. So the hospitalization is down. The length of stay is way down. In order to keep making progress against the virus, we ask all Americans to remain vigilant, especially over Labor Day. You know, you have the Labor Day weekend coming upon us immediately. I guess we can say pretty immediately. And we need everybody to be careful, to apply common sense, and do all of the things that we've told you to do as quickly, as much as you can. Social distancing, wearing a mask whenever the distancing is not possible. And
it is important to put this in the context of the fact that President Trump has repeatedly rejected publicly wearing a mask himself. He has only done so on a few occasions. He has discouraged the use of masks at times, telling the Wall Street Journal that he suspected people wearing masks were doing it to show disapproval of him, which naturally would tend to suggest that he did not want his supporters to wear them.
Remdesivir has been incredible. So we have a lot of things happening. We have a lot of therapeutics coming out. I think from the standpoint of common sense, I guess therapeutics to me right now, you go into a hospital, you give somebody a shot or transfusion. It might be a transfusion. Probably more than 50% are actually transfusions, and they'll leave the hospital shortly thereafter. I mean, to me, that's more important in a certain sense than the vaccine, but the vaccines will be great over the long term, the therapeutics over the short term, and also knowing you have the therapeutics.
So the president has repeatedly exaggerated the benefits of various therapeutics. There have actually been a series of people leaving their positions at the FDA following the overstatement of the head of the FDA about the benefits of convalescent plasma. There is in fact great hope that there are strong benefits to it, but it has been overstated by this administration. In an interview with NPR, the chief advisor for the White House vaccine program said that there was, quote, a very, very low chance of having a vaccine by the end of October, as President Trump has suggested. And when questioned about the politicization of the process, he responded, "For us, there is absolutely nothing to do with politics. Many of us may or may not be supportive of this administration. It is irrelevant, frankly." President Trump has baselessly suggested that members of his own health team, his own FDA, have been seeking to slow down the process of creating a vaccine to make him look bad. This is entirely baseless.
Joe is central casting. I said we're going to have to put him in a movie, right, as a football coach. He'd really be good playing a football coach like you. And Urban Meyer wrote a beautiful letter, and so many of the other great legendary coaches, not only coaches though, people in sports and people in life, and even great political people recommending Lou for the Presidential Medal of Freedom. And we've analyzed it very closely. We've looked at all of those recommendations. We've looked at Lou's life and his career and what he's done for charity. And the football is obvious. He was a great coach, but what he's done beyond even coaching. So Lou will be getting the Presidential Medal of Freedom, and a date is being picked. It won't be in the too distant future. Lou was married to a great woman, right, Lou? Great woman, and she just passed away a few months ago. Is an incredible woman. She was stronger. I knew her well. She was stronger than Lou. I think she was stronger than you, Lou. I hate to tell you, you're strong too, but she was special, right? So I just want to congratulate Coach Lou Holtz on soon to receive the Presidential Medal of Freedom, and we look forward to that, Lou. Thank you very much. And you can stay around and listen to Larry for a couple of seconds, or go to your friend. You probably know half of the people in the room. I'll bet they treat you better than they treat me. They treat him good. I wish you'd treat me that way. Larry, come on up.
Thank you, sir.
So this is Larry Kudlow stepping up. It was remarkable to note that in his remarks at the Republican National Convention, Larry Kudlow referred to both the health crisis and the economic crisis stemming from COVID-19 in the past tense as if they were over. They are very clearly not. Roughly 1,000 Americans are dying per day from this virus, and as I highlighted earlier, there are about 30 million Americans currently depending on unemployment. Larry Kudlow is a very wealthy man. His net worth is estimated around $25 million, but his wife applied for the Paycheck Protection Plan to get a loan for people, for businesses suffering financially from the crisis.
Traction. Today's report also included the lower wage industries and minority groups across the board. The diffusion index was a whopping 69%. So these gains are very, very broad-based. There's still too many people out. There's still too much hardship, still too many unemployed. And we're working on that, and we're moving in the right direction. And that's why today's numbers are encouraging and optimistic. Now, other areas that the President mentioned, just to underscore, we are in a housing boom. There can be no disagreement about that. Sales, mortgage applications, prices, home starts up 23% annually in July. We're in a car boom, automobile boom. We've gone from 8.7 million in sales to 15.2 million in sales in the recent 4 months. It's a big jump. As the President mentioned, the leading indicator of that is used car sales and prices. The manufacturing indexes are very strong. This recovery includes manufacturing. The ISM's running in the high 50s. The new order index is at 68. Production index is 63. We had a manufacturing report for durables, core durables. Over the past 3 months, orders up 35%, shipments up 35%. So these are very strong numbers. New business applications from 25,000 to 66,000. It's a 160% gain through August. And as the President referred, consumer spending is booming. We're up 84% annually over the past 3 months. My view, of course, we are in a V-shaped recovery. It is a self-sustaining recovery. High demand, increased production and manufacturing, along with decline in inventories, will give us a tremendous momentum going into the second half of the year. I still reckon that
it is worth noting that the U.S. is the only major industrial economy to have its unemployment rate triple due to COVID.
I think the whole second half and next year, provided that economic policies remain pro-growth. And I just want to mention one thing on the policy front. I simply don't understand the other side wanting a $4 trillion tax increase after a deep pandemic contraction. And on this point, I believe vast majority of economists, I don't care if you're a Keynesian, demand sider, supply sider, you just don't raise taxes by this amount or by any.
Well, again, they are misrepresenting Joe Biden's tax plan. Joe Biden does propose a tax increase for the top 1% of the wealthiest Americans. He's proposing this so that we can close this record deficit and debt that we have right now, but he's not raising taxes on any individuals making less than $400,000 a year. So this idea that middle-class Americans would be hurt by Joe Biden's tax increase on the wealthiest Americans is just not backed up by the facts. A Wharton study says that 90% of Americans will not see their taxes go up under Biden's plan. Now, conservatives will often argue that lowering taxes on the wealthy will cause a trickle-down of wealth, but that has not historically actually proven to be the case. And economists are increasingly of the opinion that the best way to stimulate the economy is to get more money into the hands of middle class and those struggling to get into the middle class, because they will spend that money, whereas if you're making over $400,000 a year, you can afford to not spend it, which is what we saw with Trump's tax cut. I don't want to preempt too much of what's going on, but I will come back to Trump's tax cut in a moment.
And the Democrats should do that. The Republicans will do that. They'd be glad to do that. So we'll see whether or not they do it. Okay? Please, in the back.
Yes, Mr. President, our editor-in-chief, John Solomon, had an exclusive interview with the head of the Delaware Fraternal Order of Police chapter. He said that they were going to endorse you instead of their native son, Joe Biden. I'd like your response, as well as the national organization.
This is a question from Chanel Rion, a journalist from the conspiracy theory fringe outlet OANN.
But to have the law enforcement in Delaware give their endorsement to me is really a great honor. It just shows you how pathetic the Democrats are when it comes to crime, when it comes to law and order. So would you please extend my very great thanks? It's a great honor to get it from Delaware law enforcement. We've gotten it from almost all law enforcement, but that's because every time I see Biden speak, it says Delaware, Delaware, Delaware. He never leaves. I'm all over the country. I'm all over the place.
So a couple things here. First of all, it is amusing to repeatedly hear President Trump suggest that Joe Biden not holding rallies represents some weakness on Joe Biden's part. He has repeatedly explained that out of concern for American voters, he is trying to avoid creating situations where large numbers of people will come together. Now, on the claim that Democrats are going to create more violence, it is important to note that according to federal data, both violent and property crime dropped by double digits during the Obama-Biden era. And in fact, the murder rate dropped to its lowest ever recorded rate have been an uptick of crime recently. Donald Trump is president now. The crime is going up under his watch, not under
from the beginning. They want to be in. So we're doing a lot of things that alerted the United States and some people say global warming. We are the biggest. They are the second biggest. Third, they're actually a and he's always mentioning Russia, and I don't mind you mentioning. I think probably China at this point is talking about
allowed to spread throughout the United States, while not from
President. Mr. President, bring back. Thank you. Junior had an outreach to the Indian Americans community with a video called 4 More Years. Who are very would be campaigning on your behalf among the Indian Americans with your views on India.
people that you. I know their relationship to India is. Prime Minister Modi is a friend of mine. He's doing a very while we're at it, we're talking got it pretty good on the border, as you know. Nasty. And we stand ready to help. Talking to both countries. I appreciate your nice sentiments. So do I. An event, fantastic event. I was in. And think that the people would be voting for Trump I also, as you know, went to the are working very closely with a lot of countries on a lot of different things. We've taken stronger action against Russia than any other country in the world, as you know. I'll tell you, President Putin would tell you that right now. But the fact that I get along with Russia and that I get along, frankly, with everybody right now, I'm not getting along with China, but that's my choice. I don't like what happened with respect to the pandemic, with respect to the China virus. I don't like it at all. What they've done to this world and this country and Europe and every place else is terrible. But I do get along with President Putin. But I've been tougher on Russia than anybody else by far. If you look at the Obama administration, they were weak. Look at
it is a startling, astonishing thing to say that he's been tougher on Russia than anyone when he has said that he has not confronted Putin about the reports that Russian spies reportedly paid the Taliban to kill U.S. service members, and that President Trump has offered no confrontation about that matter to Putin, and has repeatedly sought to discredit U.S. intelligence agencies, and yes, that is my cat walking around in the background, discredit U.S. intelligence agencies in their reports that unequivocally Russia interfered in the U.S. presidential election in 2016, and that it is continuing to do so in the current presidential election.
And all you've learned, do you regret saying that? Is it something you wish you had not said?
I say what I say, and I never got along with John McCain. I disagreed with John McCain. You know that better than anybody, frankly. I wasn't a fan. I disagreed with many of his views. I disagreed with his views on these ridiculous, endless wars. I disagreed with the way he handled the vets, the VA. The VA is running much better now, and we did with the Mission Act and the accountability and all the things we've done for the VA. He was not able to do that, but I disagreed with John McCain on a lot of things. That doesn't mean I don't respect him. I respected him, but I really disagreed with him on a lot of things, and I think I was right. I think time has proven me right to a large extent.
But on this notion of referring people who want to capture,
Thank you, Mr. President. Earlier in the statement that you read before, in the corner,
Yeah.
yesterday as well, and I think next year,
According to Johns Hopkins numbers, the U.S. has suffered more deaths than any other nation in the world.
Don't report deaths. We report it to a level that nobody reports it. We also do testing in cases. I watch your broadcasts and I read your information, your media outlets very, very carefully, and I look at the word cases. And the reason, I say it 100 times, nobody wants to pick it up, but we do testing at a level that nobody ever dreamed possible. We have the best tests, and we have by far the most tests. Actually, India, as per your question before, India is number 2, and they've done a good job, but they're about 40 million tests behind us, and they're a country of 1.5 billion people. Now, because of all these tests, we have far more cases. If we cut our...
This is not true. This is not how it works. We do not have more cases because we do more tests. We have more cases because we have more cases. No state in the country is doing more tests than the state of New York, and yet New York is finding very few new cases. In fact, New York has one of the lowest positivity rates in the nation. It's not a question of how many tests you do, it's a question of how many tests come back positive.
Cases. But you saw this, I don't want to go over the statistics, you all wrote it down, but you see how we're doing compared to the rest of the world, and if you took out New York, which has been a tragic situation, with the amount of people that died in New York.
You can't just simply take out a major state in the U.S. It's still a part of the United States, New York is.
No, I'm just saying.
If you take it out of the equation.
I'm just saying, New York has been, in particular, run, whether it's badly, incompetently, or whether it's unfortunate, and I appreciated Governor Cuomo saying that I've done a phenomenal job, and he said...
As a New Yorker, I need to respond to this. The president is blaming the deaths of 30,000 New Yorkers on New York. And I don't want to preempt what the president is saying too much, but I want to make some things very clear. The president is suggesting that the state of New York is, that incompetence, that was the word he used, on the part of the state of New York is the reason that deaths were so great. The state of New York does not have an intelligence agency. When U.S. intelligence warned in 2019 that there was a dangerous virus on the rise in China, President Trump
understanding the disease, and we did, and now we know it's the elderly, it's especially elderly if they have heart, diabetes, if they have problems, and we're watching it, and we're watching it very closely. And by the way, we're doing super testing with respect to that, super testing. But if we did it a different way, instead of the number that you said, but basically the number that we're at now is approximately 180,000, we'd be at 2 million people right now. Could be higher than that. Yeah, please go ahead. I don't know anything about the Russia vaccine. I'm not sure. We have our vaccine, and our vaccine is, I think it's going to be the standard. It's going to be great. These companies are incredible. They've come up.
President Trump keeps saying that he's suggesting that millions of lives were saved by his travel restrictions on China. Dr. Jennifer Nuzzo, an epidemiologist at Johns Hopkins, said, quote, "We have not seen any evidence that shows the travel restrictions stopped or slowed down transmission of the virus that causes COVID-19. The fact of the matter is, President Trump did not impose any travel restrictions on China until February, long after the World Health Organization had called attention to the threat of this virus, and at least 430,000 people arrived in the U.S. from China after January 1st, including nearly 40,000 in the 2 months after President Trump's partial restrictions. Furthermore, while the disease was spreading in Europe, there was no travel restriction on people coming from Europe until March.
Spoke earlier about the Atlantic story, and you referenced the number of administration officials who have come out to support your...
No, we have 11 people. I was just told we have 11 people. There is nobody that feels more strongly about our soldiers, our wounded warriors, our soldiers that died in war than I do. It's a hoax, just like the fake dossier was a hoax.
Actually, many items in the dossier have been corroborated, and President Trump has repeatedly demeaned service members. Setting aside the Atlantic article, we all heard him say that John McCain was not a war hero and said, "I like people who weren't captured, I hate to tell you." We have seen President Trump attack Gold Star parents. First the Khan family during the Democratic National Convention in 2016, and later a Gold Star mother early in President Trump's administration. It is not a hoax to say that he has cast aspersions on the military.
Other things, so many other things have turned out. I've been under investigation from before I even got elected. These people have gone after me more than any president in the United States in history, in the history of the United States. And it's a shame. It's a shame. And despite that, we've done more in the first 3.5 years than any administration. There's been no administration that's done more when you add...
This is not a verifiable statement that this administration has done more in the first 3 years than any other administration. We're going to put together a numerical breakdown for you. There are a couple areas where this administration has really exceeded records. It has been confirming judges at a very rapid rate. It has been rolling back environmental and safety regulations at a very rapid rate. It has had a very small rate of bills signed into law. We'll come up with a metric to measure the claim that this administration has done more than any other in the first 3 years, but it does not seem to be supported by the facts.
Chief of Staff John Kelly, who was obviously intimately involved in this. How are we supposed to read the fact that John
here's
Kelly
the thing.
hasn't?
I know John Kelly. He was with me, didn't do a good job, had no temperament, and ultimately he was petered out. He was exhausted. This man was totally exhausted. He wasn't even able to function in the last number of months. He was not able to function. He was sort of a tough guy. By the time he got eaten up in this world, it's a different world than he was used to, he was unable to function. And I told him, "John, you're going to have to go. Please give me a letter of resignation." And we did that. And now he goes out and badmouths. Now, there are people that are jealous. There are people...
It is interesting. President Trump has just said that it is a hoax, that he has disparaged military service members, and then went on to disparage General John Kelly.
I mean, I see anonymous, but it could have been a guy like a John Kelly. Because he was, just so you understand, he was a very, you look at some of his news conferences, what happened to him. He got eaten alive. He was unable to handle the pressure of this job. This job was a tough job. Mark Meadows doing a great job. But Kelly was unable to do that. And as far as that day, I mean, we have so much proof as to going to I went to Paris and the environs, and I was all set to go. They had a rainstorm, the likes of which you've rarely seen. The fog was
dense fog apparently was only surrounding President Trump.
think about it. And I said, nope, I want to go. I insist on going. It would have taken us forever. The Paris police said, please, you can't do this. They'd have to shut down various parts of Paris. And it just was not a possible situation. The helicopter would have been very quick. They had the helicopter all set, but the helicopter... We have all of the information from, and probably will release that information. But I think it's a shame when a second-rate magazine, I don't read it, I know very little about this magazine, but when a second-rate magazine can write things like that about somebody that's done so much for the military, can write things like that and get away with it, where you actually ask questions on it, it's a disgrace, and you ought to be ashamed of yourself. And let me just tell you, I watched the interview with Sleepy Joe Biden, and he didn't ask questions. You didn't ask questions like that. Read the questions, yes. They were like...
Well, it is true. Joe Biden was not asked about whether he had called soldiers losers, because Joe Biden has never called soldiers losers, and no one has ever alleged that.
Meant for a grown-up. They were meant for a child. So I just want to tell you, it's a disgrace, because you look at what I've done for the United States military. I love those people. I've gotten them pay raises when they didn't get anything near what I've been able to do.
President Trump is lying about the press raise, about the pay raise that he gave the military. He has repeatedly said that, he has repeatedly falsely claimed that President Obama didn't grant raises. The fact of the matter is Obama gave pay raises every year to the military of his presidency, and some were bigger than the raise that Trump gave.
Questions that are really meant for a child to answer. Anybody could answer. And I look at the level of question that you people ask. I mean, honestly, it's disgraceful. So I want to thank you all very much. We appreciate it. And we're doing very well. We're very, very proud of what's happened with respect to the economy. And I think that before the election, you're going to see a third quarter announced. The third quarter will be at a level that our country has never seen before. Next year, we're going to have a year that was better than last year. And I feel very certain it'll be better than last year. It'll be the greatest year we've had. And the whole reason this is working out this way is because we set a foundation for this country like we've never had before. So next year is going to be a fantastic year. But remember this.
It is very possibly true that next year will be a better year than this year.
And I think it's going to be record-setting type numbers on GDP and other things. Thank you all very much. Thank you.
So that is today's briefing. There are several things I want to circle back to. So President Trump just claimed that, if you're catching up on the story about the Atlantic offered new reporting on a decision by President Trump not to attend a ceremony honoring fallen Allied soldiers from World War I. He reportedly said that he didn't want to go because soldiers who died in battle were losers because they died, and that the rain would mess up his hair. Those are the reported reasons in the Atlantic as to why he didn't go. Today you heard him say that it was such torrential rain that no one has ever seen before, and fog that could not be navigated through, that it would be simply impossible and unfeasible for him to get there. It is worth noting that the weather did not prevent Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, German Chancellor Angela Merkel, French President Emmanuel Macron from visiting that site. They were able to get there. Now, the president has said that he has been stronger on Russia than anyone, but he has acknowledged that he has not confronted Putin about U.S. intelligence that Russian spies paid the Taliban to kill U.S. troops. According to reporting from the New York Times, the Washington Post, the Associated Press, and others, this plot has led to multiple deaths of U.S. service members, and President Trump has not even asked the president of Russia about it. Now, he also made some false claims about taxes. He and Larry Kudlow suggested that Joe Biden would be raising taxes on middle-class Americans. Nonpartisan studies of Biden's tax plan agree that 90% of Americans will not see their taxes go up under Biden's plan. Now, it is true that some of the wealthiest Americans will see their taxes go up, and Republicans will frequently argue that the best thing for the economy is for taxes on the wealthy to go down. But that's not what happened. The Trump tax cut that was given, which gave 83% of its benefits to the wealthiest 1% of Americans, did not actually achieve the impacts that were promised. For starters, 10.2 million American working families actually saw their taxes go up under the law. He promised that it would deliver 4 to 6% annual growth. The economy prior to the COVID collapse has averaged about 2.5%, which is lower than under Reagan or Clinton. He promised the tax cut would pay for itself because there would be such great economy that tax revenue would be increased. Instead, it has added over $2 trillion to the national debt. He promised it would raise wages because companies would have so much more money to pay employees. Well, it turns out companies did have so much more money, but they didn't pass it on to the employees. He had claimed that most workers would get an immediate $4,000 pay increase. It simply didn't happen. However, CEOs got an average pay increase of 2018 of over $1 million. And the money that he predicted would be used to give pay increases to workers appears to have gone largely to CEO bonuses and to stock buybacks. So that is some of the information coming out of this briefing today. I want to thank you for tuning in. I am Alan Piper, NowThis senior politics producer. If you have more questions, please tweet them at me at apiper13. I will try to answer them. I had the support today of many in our newsroom, including Maddie Green, Ian McKenna, Alex Rabinowitz, and Shelby Vacalin. I am going to be taking a few days off following this holiday weekend, so if the president makes statements and I and the team are not around to give you the facts, I just need to remind you, it's not a China virus. Viruses don't have nationalities. Joe Biden's tax plan does not call for tax increases on Americans earning under $400,000 a year. And if anyone, the president or anyone else, tells you to ingest disinfectant, it's not a good idea. I'm Alan Piper. Thank you for tuning in, and have a good evening. And stay safe this weekend.